As we're going through the Bible, we're in Numbers chapter 2. But as we mentioned before, these divisions, these chapter divisions are artificial. They're things that we have put there to help us be able to reference the scriptures more easily. Whereas in the past they had to refer to passages, things that were going on in the passages. We refer to chapters and verse numbers. But since these divisions are artificial, we're going to look at a little bit at the end of chapter 1 because it kind of flows into the thoughts here in Numbers chapter 2. At the end of chapter 1, Moses has directed from God that all the people be numbered, men 20 years and older, as they're able to fight. And then he's going to lay out the camps and where the camps are going to go in Numbers chapter 2. But a distinction is made at the end of chapter 1. If you look at what the text says, beginning in verse 47, it says, "But the Levites were not registered with them by their ancestral tribe. For the Lord had told Moses, do not register or take a census of the tribe of Levi with the other Israelites. Appoint the Levites over the tabernacle of the testimony and all its furnishings and everything in it. They are to transport the tabernacle and all of its articles, to take care of it and camp around it. Whenever the tabernacle is to move, the Levites are to take it down. And whenever it is to stop at a campsite, the Levites are to set it up. Any unauthorized person who comes near it must be put to death." That's pretty severe. "The Israelites are to camp by their military divisions, each man with his encampment under his banner. The Levites are to camp around the tabernacle of the testimony and watch over it, so that no wrath will fall upon the Israelite community." And I really like the last verse, so we're going to go ahead and read it too. "The Israelites did everything just as the Lord commanded Moses." Well, we see this distinction that's made as the Levites, from all the other people, they are chosen to serve in, to serve around, and protect the tabernacle. And the text says that if any unauthorized person, so if anybody who's not a Levite, comes near to the tabernacle or comes near to these things as the Levites are setting up or taking down the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, they will be killed. And so there's this distinction that's made because, in a sense, the Levites have been set apart as holy. They're the only ones who are allowed to touch these things. And that's not that they're more important to God than any of the other people in the nation of Israel, but they have a distinct purpose. They have a particular role that they have to fulfill. They're the only ones who can do that. And so as we look through the Bible and we see various roles that are set out, for instance, husbands and wives are given different roles. It's not that one is more important than the other, just like the Levites weren't more important than the sons of Simeon. There's just different roles. God has different things that he wants these people to do. And when we violate those roles, when we transgress those boundaries, look what happened here. God wasn't pleased with that. Any unauthorized person, so any member of the nation of Israel, though they're all God's people, any member of the nation of Israel who wasn't specifically commanded to come and take down or set up the tent of the meeting, he was going to be killed. He transgressed God's commandment. It was a sin. When we transgress the roles that we have been given today, we sin. When men act like women or women act like men, when we have relationships, marriage relationships, where the husband isn't the leader and the wife isn't the helper, that's a sin. We're transgressing the roles that God has given to us. And there's not a nice way to say that. I mean, that is actually the nice way to say it. When we don't do what God says, when we don't fulfill the roles that the Lord has given to us, we're sinning. Just like these people, if they came near the things that they weren't authorized to come near, they were sinning. In fact, God even put the Levites around the tabernacle, kind of as a buffer to keep these people away from the things that would bring them harm. But then when you look through the rest of chapter 2, the Israelites are to camp according to their respective banners, and you have all these people who are laid out according to their camps and their divisions. And you get to the end of the chapter, and the Israelites did everything that the Lord commanded Moses. They camped by their banners in this way. They moved out in the same way, each man by his clan and by his ancestral house. What you see here is a picture of people who understand that God knows the best way to work things. God knows how things ought to be ordered. God knows how things ought to be structured. They receive this structure. They receive this order from God through Moses. And they accept it and they believe it. And we know they believed it because they did it. And so when we look through the Bible and we see roles that God has given to us, if we believe God, we will fulfill those roles. It doesn't mean it will always be easy. It doesn't mean it will always be fun. Just like it wasn't necessarily, people were overjoyed. All right, it's time to take the camp and leave. But this is what God has said we're going to do. And this is the way God has said we're going to do it. And we read in the text, that's how they did it. They moved out in this same way, each man by his clan and by his ancestral house. We need to be people who search for God's way. And when we find God's way, we need to be people who fulfill God's way, who do things God's way, because God loves us and He wants what's best for us. And so as we're reading through the Bible, this is Numbers chapter 2.